Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. We are excited to share with you some of our favorite kids and teen books of the year. We are some of the youth and teen librarians, and we've done a lot of reading this year just so that we can share with you. We will share a link for the full list of the books that we are sharing tonight at the end, and you can also get it from down in the description on the YouTube channel if you're viewing this with us on YouTube. So we will get started and we'll introduce ourselves as we go. And we're going to start with Anush.
Hey, I'm Anush. I'm one of the teen librarians, and the first book I wanted to share with you is Mexikid. It's a graphic memoir by Pedro Martin, and this is an amazing, funny book. It is about Pedro Martin's childhood. He grew up in a big family with lots of older and younger siblings, and in the beginning of the book, they are going to take a road trip to go to Mexico to get his grandfather to bring him back to the US because he is the only family member who is still in Mexico. And along the way, they encounter a lot of adventures, a lot of them pretty funny. In Mexico too, it kind of like shows the things they have to do for their grandfather. So some family history, definitely very funny with some serious parts. This was my favorite graphic novel and probably favorite book that I've read this year. It would appeal to kids who like Raina Telgemeier books, and it is probably fourth grade and up.
Okay, and to introduce myself, my name is Catherine. I am also one of the teen librarians. And my first favorite book of the year is The Wild Journey of Juniper Berry. This is a middle grade realistic fiction story. I would recommend it probably for fifth grade and up. And this is the story of Juniper, who has lived her entire life out in the wilderness with her family. She has never been to at what we would consider civilization. She's never seen a car. She's never gone to school. Her parents homeschool. They forage for most of their things. They don't have most modern conveniences. So when her brother gets sick and they're not able to use the natural remedies that they usually use for him to get better, she and her family go into civilization for the first time. And so for the first time, she is in middle school. She is in a town. She is sleeping in a bed that with her sister. She's having to share a bedroom with her sister, and it's quite the shock for Juniper. And she wants nothing more than to go back out into the wilderness where things feel more sure for her. She understands that world much more than the modern world that she has been thrust into. I really loved this story. She is such a fun character. The other characters in this story are really what make it great. And just imagine if you had grown up out in the woods and suddenly had to come into society, what would that be like?
My name is Erica. I am also a teen librarian, and this is The Other Woods by Justine Pucella Winans. This one is middle grade supernatural fantasy, and this book quickly became one of my favorites for many reasons, not least of which is the fact that it has an amazing cover. I'm a sucker for a really good cover. In this one, River has spent their whole life trying to avoid the monsters that only they can see. They know the monsters come from the Other Woods, which is this spooky alternate dimension. It pops up every once in a while, like in portal form, trying to trick River into coming in. And River so far has been pretty good at avoiding it. But since River is the only one who can see the monsters and the Other Woods, they get pretty lonely sometimes until they start hanging out with Avery, who may also be River's first crush. Things are going so well with their new friendship, and everything is looking up until the Other Woods opens up one day. A monster comes rushing out, kidnaps Avery, and brings her back into the Other Woods. And as the only person who knows what really happened, River has no choice but to enter the Other Woods with their faithful pet cat, Mr. Fluffy Pancakes, or Pancakes for short, and rescue their friend from the monsters. This book was so much fun and really made me think of a mix of like Alice in Wonderland, Coraline, Stranger Things, scary stories to tell in the dark, all wrapped up into one really fun adventure. And I would recommend this for grades 5 and up.
Hello, my name is Kayla. I'm also a teen librarian, and I'm excited to tell you about the book Saints of the Household by R.A. Tisson. So this is probably a good high school book for any high school age students. And what I really like about this book is how it's written from two different perspectives of both of the brothers. There's Jay and Max, and Jay's part of the story is told in vignettes. So very similar to House on Mango Street, so short little bits of information about what's going on. And then Max's portions are written in poetry. And they both tell their points of view of what happened one night when they were in the woods by their house, and their cousin was in some sort of altercation. And it talks about the events that happened after that altercation and how they're treated by their small town in Minnesota after they try to, what they think is, rescue their cousin. So it's really beautifully told. It's definitely not a happy, cheery book, but it has some deep, intense scenes and topics, but it's really beautifully told and just a joy to read.
Hello, I'm Rainbow. I'm also a teen librarian. And one of my favorite books this year was Hidden Systems by Dan Knott. This is a graphic nonfiction book. And it is so interesting. I learned so much about the different hidden systems that we just take for granted on the regular, like, for example, the internet. The way that we use language to describe the internet makes us think that's like it's a cloud or a superhighway. But this book really shows how the internet is really just wires, like literally wires connecting everything. It has absolutely nothing to do with clouds. It has absolutely nothing to do with roadways. I found it very interesting, and it really made me appreciate the engineering advancements that we've made. I would say this book is good for 4th grade and up, though honestly anybody could read it.
This is Greenwild by Perry Thompson, and this is for 4th grade and up, but it could be read aloud to 2nd or 3rd graders who enjoyed Harry Potter. It's about a girl named Daisy, and Daisy has grown up traveling the world with her mom. Her mom is a botanist, and she studies the coolest flowers, plants, and trees, and Daisy loves it. But one day, Daisy's mom tells her that she can't come on the next trip. Her mom has to go to the Amazon, and Daisy will be left behind at a boarding school for 2 weeks. And then her mom will come back for her. But when her mom doesn't come back after 2 weeks and is declared missing, Daisy knows that something is wrong. There are suspicious things happening at the boarding school, and she is chased out of there. That's when she comes across a hidden doorway, which leads her to the magical world of Greenwild. Greenwild is a place where magic exists and is practiced and studied. And it's not just regular magic, it's plant magic or botany magic. Daisy finds out that she has a connection to this place, and if she can just figure out what it is, this might lead her to her missing mom. So she's determined to figure out what's going on. This book does leave you on a cliffhanger, so I definitely think it will be a series.
This is the Many Assassinations of Samir, the Seller of Dreams, and this is middle grade, so like 4th grade and up, but would appeal to teens as well. This is historical fiction set in 11th century on the Silk Road, and it starts with a young monk being stoned to death by other older monks who are supposed to take care of him. And he is running away from them when he runs into a caravan, and a merchant named Samir trades his life for for 6 bolts of silk. So the monks let him go, and now Omar, who is the boy, has to work for Samir to pay off his debt. And he pretty quickly realizes that Samir is kind of a swindler, a cheat, and he's not really a very good person, but he is the only adult who is kind of taking care of Omar, otherwise known as Monk, and he also realizes that Samir has angered enough people that there are quite a few of them who have hired assassins to go after him and to kill him. So even though Omar does not really like Samir, he realizes that he has to do something to stop those assassins, or he will be orphaned again.
Sincerely, Cicely, by Tamika Burgess is another one of my favorites this year. It's another middle grade realistic fiction story, which I found I was really loving this year, most of them. This story, even though the plot of the story is quite different, reminded me it had a similar feel to From the Desk of Zoe Washington. So if you liked that or you like that series, it is now a series. I highly recommend this one. This book is written in a journal style, so she's writing journal entries, and Cicely's life has been upended. Her family has just moved to a new location. She wants to be a fashion blogger, but she is seriously struggling with the new school uniforms that have zero level of fashion to them. She's also getting lots of questions from her classmates about how she is both Black and can speak Spanish. She is Black Panamanian American. And so she's having to answer lots of those questions. She's having fun with some of the class assignments, sharing about her background from Panama. But then things get even harder for her when her grandmother starts criticizing her braids. And so she is trying to grapple with her own identity and then the pressures that she's feeling both from her new classmates and her grandmother. This story is really full of heart. I loved Cicely as a character. She is someone that I would want to be friends with. And I really hope that we actually get more stories from her.
This is Her Radiant Curse by Elizabeth Lim. This one is young adult or YA fantasy. It's technically a prequel to Lim's Six Crimson Cranes, which was published in 2021. But you don't have to have read Six Crimson Cranes to enjoy Her Radiant Curse, although I highly recommend Six Crimson Cranes. It was one of my favorites of the year. In this book, we meet Chani, who was cursed when she was a very, very young child, when her father tried to sacrifice her to save her mother's life. And Chani was saved by the Serpent King, who sacrificed his own life so that she could live. She's not quite sure why, but she's thankful for it. Except that the demon witch that her father tried to sacrifice her to actually wanted her sister. And she's very, very angry that their father brought Chani instead. And so she curses Chani to look like a serpent. She has scales, she has the kind of snake-like nose, and she really looks pretty scary. So Chani then spends the rest of her life avoiding people or wearing a mask, while her sister, Vanna, who's beautiful and literally has a glowing light emanating from her, has been sought after so much that people bring them money and gifts and other things, believing that doing so will bring them luck. Chani knows that the demon witch is coming back for Vanna, and she's vowed that she will protect Vanna no matter what. This is her life's mission. But that vow is about to be put to the test because Vanna is doing a selection ceremony soon where she will choose which suitor she's going to spend the rest of her life with. And Chani knows that this is the perfect time for the demon witch to come back. This story was inspired by East Asian folklore. It was really beautifully told, really deep and lovely, and a really beautiful depiction of sisterly relationships. I would recommend this one for grades 7 and up.
All right, my next book is The Fire, the Water, and Maudie McGuinn. This was one of my favorite books that I read all year, and it really stuck with me. This is a realistic fiction told from the point of view of Maudie, who is a neurodivergent middle schooler, and she comes from a split family, so she lives during the school year with her mom and her stepdad, and then every summer she gets to spend it in California with her dad, and she looks forward to that all year long. And this year she comes to California to see her dad, and she's carrying a pretty big secret. And pretty soon after she arrives in California, there's a pretty big forest fire, and she and her dad have to evacuate and leave the area that they're used to and go to the small seaside town where her father grew up. And it's this interesting kind of play between her and her neurodivergence and how the different environments around her really play into that, as well as what her secret is and how it will come out. So it's beautifully written. I really like the perspective of a neurodivergent teenager. I don't think we get that very often. It reminded me a lot of the book Mockingbird. So fantastic book, really stays with you, and I would recommend it for grades 7 and up.
All right. No Place Like Home it's a very intense book. It's middle grade, so I would say maybe 3rd or 4th grade and up. The author, James Bird, is Native American, I think Ojibwe. But this story takes place in California. And our main character is Opine, and he and his family live in a red Pinto car. They have lived there since he was very young. To him, his mom and his brother and him, and they travel around California, trying to survive. Basically, they have fun games and stuff that they play to find food and find shelter, and they're always talking about outrunning the cavalry. So they're native. And they're just like trying not to let the white man get them down. This book is very heartwarming. It's very intense. Obviously, homelessness is a main topic, and so it's not really for the faint of heart, but it really stuck with me, and it has a really fantastic ending. And obviously there's a dog, which I love, anything like that. So yeah, No Place Like Home is a really great option if you want something deep, and will give you the feels.
This is Firefly Summer. This is a realistic fiction book with a little bit of a mystery, and I would say for 4th grade and up. It's about a girl named Rihanna who lives with her dad and his new wife. She's always spending time with him, doesn't really know any other family. But this summer that's coming up is about to be different for her. Rihanna has received a letter from her grandparents, which are her mom's parents, who she doesn't remember as they haven't spoken since her mom died many years ago. And the letter is inviting her to spend the summer with them at their camp. Rihanna takes the opportunity to go in the hopes of learning more about her mom, who her dad never talks about, and to ask questions about why her grandparents don't speak to her and her dad anymore. When Rihanna gets to the camp, she finds out that she has so many more family members than she ever thought possible. And that starts her whirlwind adventure of a summer with her many cousins. They do all the things that kids do during the summer at a camp. They make s'mores, they go swimming, they even find a real life treasure map that might lead them to more information than Rihanna could be ready for. But Rihanna is excited to discover a whole new side of herself and her family. This is another book that will give you the feels. So if you are looking for that realistic fiction book, check out Firefly Summer.
So this is a young adult fantasy that is set in an alternate Prohibition era New York. I would say 9th grade and up. This would appeal to teens and also adults. So on this island of Charmant, there have been families have been living there for a long time, and they have magical abilities. And the Revels have the ability to kind of make your fantasies feel real. So whatever you're imagining, they can make it feel real for the price of a gemstone. And they also run kind of a circus type show. So they bring in a lot of tourists to this island of Charmant, but they haven't been doing well because of the prohibition. And Lux Ravel is the star of the show, and she has this magical ability that is hidden. No one that knows about it other than her uncles, and that is to manipulate people's emotions. So she is tasked with charming Dewey Kronos, who is a bootlegger, into doing business with them. But she accidentally gets the wrong person. But Dewey is not done with her because he has ambitions of his own to get political power, and he needs her skills to manipulate people into voting for him. So this one was a really great, more of a mature fantasy, and it was really interesting. If you like things that are historical fantasy, really enjoyed this book, and romance too.
Okay, so Justine Pocella Winans actually showed up on our list twice this year. Both of their books were really, the books that came out this year were huge favorites. Bianca Torre is Afraid of Everything is for all of you who enjoy murder mysteries, which are huge right now. But Bianca Torre is so much more than that. It did remind me of a cross between, and this is for the adults out there, Only Murders in the Building meets Rear Window. Like those were the vibes that I was getting from this story. I would say that it's a YA novel that works for 9th grade and up. Bianca is a non-binary teen birder who is going through an identity crisis, a gender identity crisis, as well as collecting a growing list of phobias. One of them is that they are afraid to leave the house many times, but they have a list that they keep running of their phobias throughout the story and how they address them. They like to do a lot of bird watching from their apartment window, and maybe sometimes watch the neighbors in the apartments across the courtyard. And so they are shocked one day when they witness the murder of a fellow resident when someone breaks into their apartment wearing a plague doctor mask and kills them. And so now Bianca is going to be forced to leave their apartment. They enlist the help of a fellow resident to break into this apartment and try to start investigating. This story is bizarre and very funny, and the twists that and turns that the murder takes, sometimes you're just like, how did we end up here? But you just have to keep reading to find out what's going to happen next. I highly recommend Bianca Torre is Afraid of Everything.
I second Bianca Torre. So this is Buzzing by Samuel Satin. This is a middle grade realistic graphic novel. This one is about Isaac, who was recently diagnosed with obsessive compulsive disorder. And one of the ways that Isaac's OCD shows up is as harmful, intrusive thoughts that tell him he's not good enough or that nobody likes him. He finds relief through his art. He is a very talented artist, but he is always struggling to make friends. Until one day, a classmate sees some of Isaac's drawings in class and is super impressed. The dragons, the mythical creatures Isaac has created are just amazing. And this classmate asks Isaac if he would be interested in joining their Swamps and Sorcery group, which is kind of like a D&D gaming group. Isaac's really excited about this group and learning the game, and especially about the new friends he's making, including someone who might be his first crush. And perhaps the coolest, his art comes in really handy in designing everybody's character. So everybody's really excited about these artistic representations of their characters that Isaac is coming up with. Even though Isaac knows that creative outlets are good for him, his mother really worries that playing the game won't be healthy for Isaac. And his sister is upset because Isaac is getting a lot of attention from their mom because of his recent diagnosis. And so Isaac has to try and prove to his mother that he can thrive with this new friend group. This graphic novel does a really beautiful job of using art to convey Isaac's experience. You can see the little bees on the cover. That's how the artist shows his intrusive thoughts. And it was just really beautifully done, really engaging. And I would recommend this for readers in grades 5 and up.
This book is called Something Close to Magic by Emma Mills, and this is what I would call a cozy fantasy. It feels like reading with a blanket around you and like a hot cup of cocoa. It's just really fun and kind of relaxing to read. So Something Close to Magic is about a witch named Arlie who lives in a town where there is magic, but all magic comes at a cost. So for example, she's a baker, so she could use her magic to heat the oven really fast, but the consequence might be that the bread becomes like cold in the center or something like that. So she's working as a baker's apprentice and not super happy with her life when along comes a character named Ileana, who is a bounty hunter. And Ileana asks Arlie for some help to use her special brand of magic to find someone. And it turns out they're looking for one of the kingdom's princes, Prince Hapless. And hapless, if you don't know, means unlucky. And this prince definitely lives up to his name. So they go on an adventure to find Prince Hapless, along with one of my favorite characters all year, which is a troll named Quad. And this troll is not what you typically think of it as a troll, but is just really funny and has some great like dry British humor throughout the entire thing. So they go on an adventure to try to find Prince Hapless and to save the kingdom. It's a nice little twist on the trope of a prince rescuing a damsel in distress and kind of flipping it on its head and having the damsel rescue the prince. So if you want something cozy and fun with just a little bit of magic, this is a great one to check out.
All right, Spice Road it's a really fun fantasy epic quest type novel. Our main character is Imani. She is a warrior. She comes from an affluent family. Her brother is also a warrior. In this like Arabic sort of themed world, the magic system is such that you have to drink this spice tea to activate your like magic powers. And so Imani's has an affinity for iron. So she has this epic dagger that she can turn into pretty much anything, any weapon that she needs. So she's pretty fearsome. She's part of this elite group that protect the town. And she goes out and kills things like monsters, ghouls, and like genies or jinns. And one day, her brother just goes missing. And so her whole family is distraught. They think he's dead. And she is just torn apart. He's basically her best friend. So she's out on patrol one day, about a year later, and she meets this jinn who she immediately is supposed to kill. But he is very quick talking and very charismatic and talks to her and tells her about her brother and how he isn't dead. He escaped to a different land across this like vast wasteland. And she doesn't immediately believe him, but over time she starts to understand. And honestly, like any hope of her brother is all she wants. So she makes a deal with the jinn, and she goes back to her like guard group, and they create a group of warriors to cross the wasteland together. And of course, because this is a fantasy, of course, she's going to have to go with her arch nemesis, right? Because that's how this stuff works. So they have to cross this great land, find this city on the other side that doesn't have magic. This is a great story, full of lots of adventures and death and destruction and sword fighting and magical creatures. It's super fun. And the character Imani is a very strong female. I just love her. So if you're looking for something fun, this is the start of a trilogy. The rest of the books are not out yet. But get started with this one. It's really great.
This is The Lost Year by Catherine Marsh. This is a historical fiction book for 4th grade and up. And my favorite thing about this book is that it is told in different points of view, different perspectives, and even in different timelines. First, we have Matthew. Matthew is in the present time and is currently stuck at home during the COVID-19 pandemic. His mom has moved his grandma from a nursing home into their house. And so Matthew is feeling a little bit out of sorts. He is spending his time playing video games until his mom wants him to stop and tells him to help his grandmother unpack and get rid of some things. As he is helping her, he finds old documents, photos, journal entries from when his grandma was a young girl growing up in Ukraine. And then from the other points of view, we are getting his grandma's story from when she was a young girl during that time, and all of the hardship that was going on in Ukraine. We're learning her story as well. And then there are two other girls that we are kind of slowly figuring out their identities along the way, but we assume have something to do with his grandma. All of these stories tie together in the end in a way that will either make you gasp in surprise or cry. This is definitely a timely page-turning novel, and is a great story of family, survival, and sacrifice. And it's actually inspired by the author's own story.
Okay, those are all of the books that we have to share with you. And so we will take a moment here. If you have a device, you can scan this QR code and it will take you to the list of all of the books that we talked about this evening available on our library's website. As I mentioned, it'll also be linked in the description below the video on YouTube. So if you would like to grab that from there, we hope that there were at least a couple that inspired you to get reading. And so have fun and thanks for joining us. Happy reading.